This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And this week we watched Holmes and Watson, a humorous take on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's classic mysteries featuring Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Let's watch.
Humorous take, debatable.
Yeah. How are you, Michelle?
Don't ask me that.
Okay, ask me how I am.
How are you, Abigail?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh my God, we can't do this. Ask me again.
How are you, Michelle?
Pretty good. I got an email I could read out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It happened just this very moment.
Let's do it.
I got a follow-up email, a sequel email from MR, a sequel to the preamble to Hades 2, which is, since you've already watched Escape Plan 2, now I will say, to confess, the first email we got right before we recorded that episode, and so this one obviously we got after we recorded it, but as of today, the release of Escape Plan 2.
Yeah.
You know? So the timeline of when the emails were intended to be sent and episodes were released all over the place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But since you've already watched Escape Plan 2, Hades, and I cannot influence your ratings, I can finally rant freely about the movie to someone else who has seen it. By the way, there's no high or anything in it, which I think is great energy for this. Escape Plan 2 Hades has stuck in my mind as a special kind of bad. I've seen worse movies, but I knew those weren't good when I chose to watch them. Hades might be the worst movie I have ever seen without warning being in bold. The first Escape Plan was a pleasant surprise. Stallone and Schwarzenegger have fun together, and the supporting cast has some solid talent. Vincent D'Onofrio, Sam Neill, Vinnie Jones, and a personal favorite of mine, Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel, I don't know, but that actually sounds like it fucks. We should watch it. In my opinion, it manages to balance on that dumb fun edge, not taking itself too seriously. So when years later I was sick, stuck lying on a sofa and scrolling through Netflix, noticing there was a sequel, I was happy to find something to watch. How wrong I was. The color palette and frantic editing made me feel even more ill. I should be able to tell without guessing how many knives the bad guy is wielding. There are no problems to overcome in Hades. The whole escape plan consists of their friends hacking the system from outside and them running out, which is very true. It also feels like it ends in the middle of a conversation. How does this sequel make the original pretty generic action movie feel like a masterpiece? Then they give us a quick recap of the first movie, which I won't read out the entirety of, but suffice to say, I think we should watch it. And then at the end, I'm left with so many questions after watching Hades. How is Kimbrel among the kidnappers in the beginning? Why is there future tech like force fields, robots, and holograms?
Yes, the force fields are insane. They all have these, like, every door is basically a force field.
Yeah, like it's a video game.
I remember you were like, why? Like, you were like, this film is strangely, like, futuristic, you know? How is that possible?
How is there a guy who can get them contraband if this is a completely isolated prison? How does a remote controller turn into a laser that somehow reveals their location to their friends outside? How do the guys on the higher levels of the prison get down to the floor because there's no elevator? Why does the prison employ one of the prisoners as a cook? Thank you. I can't believe I forgot to talk about that in the episode.
Like, why did they employ one of the prisoners as a cook in the prison?
Yeah.
That's really common. I mean, lots of prisoners are cooks. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot of prisoners in prisons will become cooks or janitors.
I do think it's surprising for this prison, but I see your point.
Yeah. I mean, Orange is the New Black. Red is the head cook.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. How does the cook know who will be fighting the hacker trio to bribe them with cookies? That's a great point, though.
Yeah.
How is Shu surprised that the guards know about their deal with Count Zero when he himself said they are probably under extra surveillance? Why does the layout of the prison matter? What even is the layout? My best guess is that the thing spins somehow. Okay.
Well, everything moves.
Yeah, everything moves.
That's probably true.
But them knowing the layout doesn't end up helping them.
And to be honest, we never really figure out how it moves.
Yeah.
In what directions or how it really affects them, other than they don't really know their way around.
Yeah.
Look, lots of good questions, Emma. You paid attention more than we did.
Yeah. I will leave on the very last thing here because this is also its own sort of follow-up to last time. No need to worry about the API changes anymore. For new listeners or listeners who don't remember, we talked about how last time the all-star function of MR's great website for the podcast was engineer-of-souls.github.io. was being fucked over by IMDb API changes. They said, no need to worry about the API changes. I have found a workaround underway and close to being deployed. I can just scrape the information straight from the IMDb website. It's just a bit more fiddly.
How good.
Yeah. So, but you can trust that I won't leave my network halfway no matter what.
Oh,
yeah.
Love you, MR.
Love you, Emma.
Love you, Emma. Also, like on the note of like a sly film, the Stop or My Mother Will Shoot that we did a long time ago, another sly film. We do a lot of them. I didn't realize this, but in the podcast No Such Thing as a Fish, it is one of the guys on No Such Thing as a Fish is called James Harkin. It turns out that film is like, ironically, one of his favorite films.
Oh my God.
They bring it up every second episode where he's like, he's always got a piece of trivia about it, and they're like, oh, James, not again. You're not going to talk about Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. And I just feel, I'm so glad I've seen it.
Yeah.
As a result of our own stupid podcast. I should reach out to No Such Thing as a Fish and say, here's a great piece of trivia for you. James, you should bring up that a podcast has covered your favorite film. Stop or My Mum Will Shoot.
A movie that was not notable enough for me to remember much of in the greater context of this podcast.
Who played the mum again? Was it Estelle?
Yeah, it was one of the Golden Girls. Not the two that we all know.
The one that played Sophia.
I look, I gotta be honest, in this moment, I don't remember
the one that plays B. Arthur's mum.
Oh, that's right. One of them is one of their mums. Jeez, that's fucking...
Yeah, Estelle Getty.
Yeah, Estelle Getty.
Yeah.
I knew it was an E.
She played Tootie Bumowski. I really wiped that film from my memory. I could not tell you any single scene in that film.
You can tell me a single scene about Stop or My Mum Will Shoot? No. I remember the scene where he says it because he really stumbles over. Stop.
My mum will shoot.
That's not far off.
Yeah.
It's kind of this podcast's equivalent of, what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad? It's my favorite bit to do with any movie title.
The long dramatic pause before saying the movie title.
What I love though is the way that in Suicide Squad, Will Smith like kind of nods his head in disbelief, and so that means you really feel the pause because it feels like he would do one sort of like head bob, but he does like 5. Yeah. So you really feel the dramatic tension before he says Suicide Squad.
He's just like steeling himself up to do it, you know?
Yeah, that's him summing up the courage to say it.
Speaking of courage, it took a lot of it to get through today's film.
Nice.
Holmes and Watson.
These are getting closer to organic.
Still so cultivated in my mind. So
we're like almost to 150 episodes in, and we're getting close to being functional podcasters.
And hey, to be fair on myself, you can cultivate a lot of organic produce. So
that what?
You can cultivate organic produce.
Oh, yes, I get it. Agriculture joke. Yes. Yes, I understand humor. Yes. I just watched Holmes and Watson.
Robot Michelle 3000.
Bebop, comedy.
I'm just going to unplug you for a while.
Fart, beep, jart.
Finally, it's just us now.
I'm going rogue. Jizz come. Chirping, fart,
jarting,
and shit. Well, let's be honest, it's basically the same as the podcast is normally.
Yeah, 100%. We got the same amount of quality out of the Michelle 3000.
You don't have to be so enthusiastic about this bit that we're doing.
Okay, all right. But today we watched Holmes and Watson, and
you a Will Ferrell fan?
It wasn't all good. I'm a massive Will Ferrell fan. I mean, I grew up in the early 2000s, so I think it's kind of hard as a millennial to not have some fond association with Will Ferrell.
I think we are both within the like 3 or 4 year bracket that when Will Ferrell was in like 4 movies a year, and they were all 4 of them the biggest comedies of that year for like a 5-year period.
And it was the kind of shit that you just quoted forever in primary and high school.
Anchorman being a notable.
Yeah, because I had an older brother, I kind of watched Anchorman when it came out, which meant I was a bit ahead of my own year because my big brother had shown it to me. So in year 7, I remember it just exploded in my year group, and everyone was like, I love the lamp.
Milk was a bad choice.
That was so 3 years ago, guys.
I'm in a glass cage of emotion. These are all classic comedy lines. This is good. Anchorman is a movie that is actually not that bad, but because it's been one of the most densely quoted movies ever to be released. And I say densely because I feel like it's as quoted as movies that came out in like the fucking 60s and 70s.
For our generation, certainly.
Yes,
Yeah.
but within obviously a much shorter span of time. And so you kind of know almost every line of the script. And so it feels tedious in a way that I think betrays the movie's quality.
But also it was good, safe, stupid fun. So it would be on free-to-air TV all the time. You'd rent it from Blockbuster. So just due to the very, like the lonely nature of being a child and having a lot of time on your hands, I feel like all of us would just rewatch these films again and again.
Yeah.
It'd be like Anchorman, Zoolander, obviously.
Zoolander's a great tight 90 comedy.
I got really into Blades of Glory when it came
Wow.
out.
That
which
one
was
I didn't
actually
like as
even
much.
It's not good. It's really not good. But I really liked it because I really liked Napoleon Dynamite. So I was like, oh my God, it's Will Ferrell and John Heder. I'm going to love it. And I watched the shit out of that film. And also, more to the point, I watched the shit out of Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
With John C. Reilly in it.
Of course.
I fucking loved that movie. I watched it all the time. I liked all the big soda cups everyone would drink out of. It was so American. It made fun of being American. I had a good time with it.
I really love... I mean, Talladega... Did Adam McKay direct anything between Talladega Nights and The Big Short? I think he did.
Oh,
but
God,
that's really
it'd be wild if he didn't.
It's really funny.
The jump from Talladega
It's still really funny either way. But
the Talladega Nights to Big Short pipeline is only so long. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really loved Walk Hard, which came out either the same year or like immediately after. And like... That movie's good. I remember I showed it to you and we were both like in our mid-20s at that point. And so it wasn't...
I think we were younger.
Maybe
20s.
we were like 20. But like it wasn't as funny as I remembered it because I had first watched it when I was like 15. And like it's, you know, it's probably best watched when you're 15. But it's solid, I think.
Did you know that... I'm just looking up Adam McKay's filmography to see if whatever the fuck came in between. Because he did, Adam McKay's done everything. He did Anchorman. He did Wake Up Ron Burgundy, The Lost Movie, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, John C. Reilly, Will Ferrell.
I didn't like Step Brothers.
I didn't either. I
didn't like it.
It's not for me. But everyone in the reviews of this film was like, it's no Step Brothers. And I'm like, it's no Talladega Nights.
Every single boy in my year in high school loved it.
Yeah.
But the one scene with fucking Ben Wyatt Adam Scott doing Sweet Child of Mine in the car, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a funny scene.
Because Adam Scott's really funny.
Yeah. But as is Catherine Hahn in that scene.
But everything that I see of the actual two leading men in it, I'm like, eh.
It's really tedious.
Then he did The Other Guys.
Yes. Which I also showed you and also really didn't hold up apart from the first 15 minutes, which is maybe one of the funniest sequences I've seen in a movie.
Then he did Anchorman 2.
Yes.
And then he did The Big Short. So it was Anchorman 2 to The Big Short. 2-year gap as well. Not long at all.
Jesus Christ. So while he was doing Anchorman 2, a movie that is not great, he knew he was cooking with Big Short.
The Big Short is quite genuinely one of the best films I've ever seen.
It's incredible.
I think I've watched it like 20 times because it's just so Moorish.
For a long time, it was my go-to answer when a student would ask me what I think the best edited movie I've seen is.
It was like my go-to, date kind of film. If I had some like fucking random dude over, I'd be like, let's just watch The Big Short. Because a lot of the time they hadn't seen it and I'm like, well, I'm looking for an excuse to watch it again. But yes, that's... Anyway, to move off of Adam McKay.
Sorry,
I love Talladega Nights and I actually think that I don't know this for sure, but I expect that if I watched it again this year, maybe I'll watch it again like this week. I feel like it might hold up. I feel like it might.
I think it's more likely to than some of the other ones that we mentioned.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I mean, that leads us to this film, another collaboration between Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly.
It makes me so sad that John C. Reilly, he is funny. But you know there was one year where he was in 3 of the Best Picture nominees?
What?
He was in Chicago, Chicago, Gangs of New York, and The Hours in the same year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him.
This guy's an incredible dramatic actor, a beautiful singer. He's Mr. Cellophane.
He's an incredible dramatic actor. I remember like him in... Gangs of New York by Scorsese, and he's always a standout in everything. He was also in like PTA films, obviously. Yeah. But he gets around.
He's great. And, you know, that's why he's also good in comedy. I wish he was in better comedies.
Yeah. Apparently, John C. Reilly practices transcendental meditation.
Oh, you saw that on his Wikipedia page too? Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing looking him up?
I was checking to see if he was a recurring...
Wow.
That's what checking.
Because this is my episode, Michelle.
Sounds
like you've been looking up my movie.
I didn't look up Holmes and Watson. I just looked up John C. Reilly. I'm just a fan.
Okay.
I was just looking it up as a fan.
Sure.
I'm a John head. John C. head. Well, actually, there's a different John C that people are a lot of fan of. John Cena.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got. Yeah. You can't see me. Yeah. But now he's in good things sometimes. Did you say Peacemaker? That's pretty good in that.
I mean, he had that cameo in Barbie.
That's
Huge.
true. He was pretty good in that.
Huge moment.
He was pretty good in that.
Yeah. I've been cranking the Barbie soundtrack.
Yeah, that
Don't
makes
know
sense.
why.
It's a good soundtrack. We're not focused today, are we?
No. Well, I haven't had my medication yet. So yeah, what I mean, okay, so what the fuck did you think of this film?
This movie?
Straight off the
Holmes
bat.
and Watson?
Yeah.
I actually think we've watched comedies on this list that are far more tedious.
Yes.
I even have in my notes, to this movie's credit, it zips.
It goes by quickly and it has a really good cast. And don't get me wrong, the cast are completely misused, but I would say not tedious.
Yeah.
A tight 90. Actually,
90.
A tight 80, really.
Many of the scenes betray the fundamental problem with Will Ferrell, which is every single joke is one of two things. What if a person was really dumb but thought they were really smart? And what if I was yelling?
Yeah.
That's every single joke. And so as soon as you get a scene that's over 4 minutes, you get bored of it. That's why he's best utilized in sketches.
Definitely.
However, very few of the scenes are around 4 minutes. So like it kind of zips. It's not good. This is not good or funny.
No.
There's a bit I want to talk about later. Steve Coogan kind of kills it in one scene.
He does. I mean, I'll launch into some of the key details so we can kind of rip into it because I want to talk about the cast. So here's a bit of information for you, Michelle. Felt really bad.
I'm keeping all of that. All of that. I need listeners to know that Abby just sniffed it and then wafted her hand and her face went, oh.
Can I know we're about to go into key details, but don't do the whole like it's
too late. It would have already happened by this point.
Reverse it. Just a really quick aside, just on the note of that burp that I did. I was like hanging out with Claude and some of like our friends on a couch and I burped and I was like, oh, that was like, it kind of hurt. It was almost like tangy.
Hurt?
And it was like kind of like scorched my throat.
Oh my God.
And what I'd eaten was my own cooking. I'd made like meatballs and spaghetti.
Like some stomach acid came up?
I think it was a lot of acidity in the tomatoes or whatever. Anyway.
Like acid reflux.
A little bit, yeah. But I was burping a lot. And then Claude had like arrived and he sat next to me and I burped, but I was trying to burp under my breath, I wasn't doing big ones. I was just kind of letting them slip out a bit. And then Claude like sniffed around and he was like, oh, I think like Fella's bins are out or something. Like it smells horrible. Like I think he's got a bin going off in the kitchen or something. And I was like, what? And I was like, did it smell like this? And I did another little burp and he was like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, that's me. That's my breath. That's my burps. And he was like, I'm being serious right now. It smells like a trash can. It smells like bin juice. And it's so sulfuric and tangy and horrible. And he was like, I don't know what you could, just maybe try and burp into your mouth and don't let it come out. Because I was like, do you reckon everyone can smell it? And he was like, yeah, probably. It smells terrible. So I was like having an absolute anxiety attack over my burps, trying to like burp towards him and burp in my mouth and try and like cover it with other things all night.
Okay.
It was horrible. And every time I burp, right now, like every time I burp, I'm just worried about the smell.
Okay, now the music's gonna come in.
So this film has a 3.8 stars out of 10. Yep. Let me start that again.
You got this.
This film came out in This film came out in 2018 and has 3.8 stars and had it when we locked the list and has it now. So nothing's changed.
Hey, that's fun.
It was written and directed by Ethan Cohen. Not Ethan Cohen.
Not Ethan Cohen.
No, that's just designed to trick you, see?
Someone's really playing with the DGA rules on double names.
Yeah, this guy's called Ethan Cohen. And he is an Israeli-American screenwriter and film director who's written scripts for Hollywood movies such as Idiocracy, Tropic Thunder, Madagascar, Escape to Africa, Men in Black 3, and The Bad Guys. So
wait, which one's Madagascar Escape to Africa? Is that the first one or the second one?
It's Escape to Africa, so I think it's the second.
Okay.
Let's have a look. Yeah, it's the sequel to Madagascar.
No, I know Noah Baumbach famously did the third one, right?
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
People love to bring that up because he makes great movies.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with cashing out once in a while.
I totally agree. I don't begrudge him for that at all.
I do not begrudge you. So he's done a lot of stuff. He wrote and directed this film, and it's so funny because also when you look up this film, it happily tells you it's like, yeah, this was also written by Ethan Coen and Arthur Conan Doyle. You're like, no.
Sure.
No, they don't share a credit.
Sure. Yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle signed off on this for sure.
The cast is astounding because it's very British and American. It's kind of strange that they got a British woman to play an American and then they got 2 Americans to play 2 Brits, but let's get into that. They got Will Ferrell to play Sherlock Holmes, John C. Reilly plays Watson, Rebecca Hall plays Grace Hart. I love Rebecca Hall.
I love her
since
so
she
much.
was in The Prestige and Starter for 10.
You know, both of those came out the same year and they were her first 2 movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Same year?
Yeah, same year.
There you
Both
go.
2006.
In Starter for 10, it's called Starter for 10, right?
Yeah, Starter for 10.
Yeah, she plays a character called Rebecca, and Alice Eve plays a girl called Alice.
Wow, that's
Crazy.
fun.
I
Wait,
know.
that's what James McAvoy?
Yeah.
I'm remembering that. Yeah.
I love that film.
That's
Set
a
in
fun,
Bristol in
fun
the
little
80s.
movie.
Ray Fiennes plays Moriarty.
Yeah.
And also Jacob Musgrave. They're a guy pretending to be Moriarty.
Yeah.
Rob Brydon plays Inspector Lestrade.
Love seeing him.
Yeah. Kelly MacDonald, we love, plays Rose Hudson.
Both of them got a specific note from me where I went, Rob Brydon, aw, and then Kelly MacDonald, aw.
We loved her in Boardwalk Empire.
Love, yeah.
Margaret Schrader.
Margaret
I
Schroeder.
made you some soda bread.
Yeah, she's so good in that.
She is. She's good in everything.
I love, every time she sees her, my heart soars.
Yeah.
Every time I see her. Cut that.
Steve Coogan plays Gustav Klinger.
Love a good Coog.
And he was really fun in it.
He is. He genuinely steals that scene. Like every scene is like, I see why you think this is funny, and it's not that Will Ferrell or John C. Reilly are doing bad at what their whole shtick is. It's that that's not very funny. And then Steve Coogan comes in and delivers like stone cold jokes.
Yeah.
And he's obviously funny.
Yeah. Lauren Lapkus plays Millie. Love Lauren Lapkus.
Love her.
Pam Ferris plays Queen Victoria.
Yeah, fucking Miss Trunchbull.
Trunchbull, yeah. And also Rosemary. No, is she Time or Rosemary from Rosemary and Time? That's the English detective series where they're gardeners and they solve mysteries.
That's so English.
I know.
No other country would ever make that movie.
I think she plays Time.
Show, sorry.
I think she plays Time.
Okay.
And the woman from The Good Life plays Rosemary. I don't know. Email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com if you remember. Hugh Laurie plays Mycroft.
Yeah.
Fun. Bella Ramsey.
Yeah.
Is the girl yelling.
Cute little Bella Ramsey.
Yeah. Little baby Ramsey.
Little baby Ramsey.
And then you've also got Billy Zane cameoing as well at the end on the Titanic.
Which is definitely a reference. And I put that down. I specifically wrote, fuck, you know what? The Billy Zane line is funny. And I love how much that guy cameos as himself.
Yeah. He really enjoys it. I mean, he cameoed in Zoolander.
Yes, which is why I have the returning actors Steve Coogan in Marmaduke, Billy Zane in Zoolander 2 and archival footage in Critters 3 and Will Ferrell in Zoolander 2.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's the cast. In terms of the production as well, before I just give you some information about the film itself, I'll give you the overview. The film, okay, you tell me how much you think this budget was for the film.
I mean, it looks and runs like a mid-tier studio comedy, but it was made in 2018 with a later career Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, which makes me think it was a surprisingly bloated budget. So 90 million is my guess.
Well, surprisingly, no, it was pretty tame. It was 42 million.
42. It's an appropriately budgeted studio comedy.
But guess how much it made?
I have never heard of this movie for such a cast. I'm going to say 20 million.
It made 42 million.
That's still rough.
It's terrible.
That's so bad.
Terrible. Yeah. Real waste of time, this one.
A waste of time is a great way to put it.
And what's really interesting is that before it actually was made, apparently the idea for it came about in 2008, and they were going to get Sacha Baron Cohen to play Sherlock Holmes, and they were going to get Will Ferrell to play Watson. And then
the game is afoot.
My Watson.
He obviously only does one character.
Yeah. God,
My Watson is better. It's way better.
I saw a clip of Borat the other night on like TikTok, and I was like, fuck it. It has actually aged pretty well. Like, it is funnier than I remember it to be.
I don't know if it's aged well in all aspects.
No, not all aspects, but humor-wise,
sure,
pretty funny.
I mean, you have been at the forefront of the Borat
The
Renaissance.
Borat.
The Borat Renaissance. I'm still not in it.
But mankinis are so funny, Michelle.
Pretty funny. What if a man wore exposed clothing like a woman?
We could talk more about Borat if you'd like.
No, I would rather we didn't.
So that and it did kind of go into development hell. I mean, from 2008 to 2018, it was kind of trying to get off the ground for 10 years.
What if Sherlock Holmes was funny and dumb? Took a long
Funny's
time.
an overstatement, isn't it?
No, that's the pitch. That's not the movie.
Well, that's the thing. It's like this movie wasn't tedious at all. But it wasn't funny. Like at no point do I remember laughing.
Can you answer me one thing?
Sure.
I mean, I remember laughing at the very least at the Billy Zane line. Just at them going, man, he's gorgeous. And I'm like, he has kind of coasted since the 90s and the fact that he is very handsome.
Yeah. It's good to know he's also like a chill dude as well.
He seems
like a
very
really
chill.
nice guy.
Wait, I forget. When did the RDJ Sherlock come out?
RDJ?
Robert Downey Jr., commonly referred to as RDJ.
I'm sorry, I'm not hip enough. I would have assumed that came out in the late 2000s, but let me just check for you.
Because I can't remember if it came out like in 2008 or if it came out in like 2014.
Yeah, 2009. It would have come out the year after they tried to get this one off the ground.
Okay, great. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay. Well, here's the overview, Michelle. Holmes is, for people that don't know, Holmes is a legendary detective living in Victorian London with his assistant Watson and housekeeper Mrs. Hudson. Did you know?
Yeah.
They are at Holmes' surprise party at Buckingham Palace where they discover a corpse inside of a birthday cake, along with a message from Moriarty stating that Queen Victoria will die in 4 days' time. They trace the poison in the corpse's body to Gustav Klinger, who is in cahoots with Moriarty, but is quickly murdered. Holmes decides that he must seek help from his brother Mycroft, who tells him that the murderer is someone close to him. Holmes mistakenly believes Watson to be the murderer and has him arrested. He realizes quickly it was actually Mrs. Hudson, who is revealed to be Moriarty's daughter, and tracks her to the Titanic. There's a lot of anachronistic elements to this film, where the murder of the Queen is to take place. After apologizing to and freeing Watson, they discover a bomb, which Watson throws out of a window. The bomb lands in Mrs. Hudson's boat, killing her and her accomplices. Holmes gives Watson the credit he deserves for his work on the case, which is all he wanted. The end. And I've left out the stuff including all like the two dashing young women that they fall in love with. Rebecca Hall plays Dr. Grace Hart, and Watson and her have a little romance, and Sherlock falls in love with Millie, who they describe in this as feral. Yeah. Which is wild.
She confuses me in how I feel about her, because I understand the impulse to do a character like that and have them fall in love, and then the reveal at the end is that she actually can speak the whole time and is smart.
Well, the whole thing with her character is that she is introduced by Grace Hart saying she was raised by cats and has like the mental capacity of a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And so she's mute, and all she does is do cat-like things where she'll lick her hands and tap her head. And to be fair, I say nothing really made me laugh. Lauren Lapkus did make me laugh when she's sad later on with Sherlock and she gives him a note and it's a drawing of a sad cat. That made me laugh. I was like, that's so stupid.
That is funny.
Yeah.
She's introduced to them, as you said, as having the mental capacity of a 4-year-old, and then Sherlock Holmes falls in love with her. And I
think he's meant to have the mental capacity of a 4-year-old because he's a genius, but also I feel like he is very childlike as a character. So it didn't read as weird and fucked up.
But I think it does.
I feel like it was almost like Watson and Grace Hart were like the put together parts of these duos.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it feels like Sherlock and Millie were like the two people they both had to take care of in a respect.
Yeah. Look, the movie really never makes up its mind on whether Sherlock Holmes is smart or is dumb.
It can't, can it?
It never does.
No.
It repeatedly, in every moment, decides the opposite thing is true. Because he is very dumb and then wrong, but then absolutely right, and everyone goes, he is a genius.
Yeah. Also, it's so funny because when this was pitched in 2008, this would have been pre the Sherlock TV show with Benedict Cumberbatch.
And the RDJ.
And you can see they
Holmes.
took so much from the Sherlock show in that, like, when he goes into his mind palace and he starts thinking, and
that's
it's the
what
narration.
I was going to say. Have you ever seen that Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, when it came out.
No. I mean the Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, when it came out.
Right. That's more when he goes into his head and then he's like doing the calculations. That's the Robert Downey Jr. one.
Really?
That's almost exactly the effect they do.
Oh my God.
It's a direct parody of the RDJ Sherlock. But the problem I have with that is that the RDJ Sherlock already feels in a good way, like a parody, because he's so
remember.
smart, he can punch people good, is
Yeah.
how that gag works.
Yeah.
And that is the exact way you would do like a comic book of Sherlock
Yeah, I
Holmes.
remember when I saw the RDJ Sherlock Holmes when it came out, it did feel a bit like it was taking the piss out of Sherlock,
It is a
and it was
little.
pointing fun at him as well. It didn't make him out to be as grandiose as the show does.
Yeah.
Or as intimidating. It just kind of pokes fun at him from memory.
It goes into slow-mo with him with like curves of equations going like punch him in the left side, do this, and da-da-da. Like it's
Yeah.
exactly that. Also, if it'll make you feel more comfortable, you can refer to him as Robert Downey Jr.
Thank you so much.
I release you from the compact.
Oh, thank God. I'm just trying to be trendy like all the
seal
kids.
is broken.
Was Rachel McAdams in the 2009 Sherlock Holmes?
Potentially. I know Jude Law was Holmes, and that was why a lot of people liked it, is it was, two very attractive men at probably the peak of their attractiveness.
Really? And do you mean Jude Law played Watson?
What did I say?
You said he played Holmes.
Yes, you're right. Jude Law played Watson.
And, oh my God, it was Rachel McAdams. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I remember that.
Good pull.
Thank you
Good
so
pull,
much.
Abby. I never remember. I love Rachel McAdams, and I never remember when she's a love interest, because she is a love
She's
interest.
usually the love interest.
Yeah.
80% of the time, it could be Rachel McAdams.
Outside of like About Time, often when she's the love interest, they don't really give her anything to do.
No, like in Wedding Crashes. She's the love interest there, and
I
she's
forgot
just there
she's
to be
in
pretty.
Wedding Crashes
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
This is what I mean.
You know why she's a good love interest? Big smile, big dimples.
Big dimples, big smile.
Cute little like freckle or mole or whatever on her face. Makes her a good romantic lead.
She's got a great, wholesome American face.
And a great
And
ass.
a great ass.
Great fucking ass.
And those fucking tits, my God.
Oh my God.
But she's
big,
also like an incredible
juicy-
comedic talent, and I'm glad she's in more things that should do that.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she made herself with fucking Regina George, and still to this day, almost 20 years later, still an iconic performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this film, the talent in it, the cast, wasted.
Yeah.
I can't believe they had Pam Ferris as Queen Victoria. I feel like she was she looked miserable to be there, to be fair. Like she was giving it like 20%.
Now, but that might also be her giving a great performance as Queen Victoria, a woman who kind of was miserable to be everywhere.
Yeah, true. I don't think you'd have to give much or emote much, really.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I read the creepiest. This is another tangent.
What is it with you and the creepy stories? We don't do a creepy podcast.
I wish we did. I have so
know.
many creepy stories to tell.
Maybe we'll do a bonus and it's just Abby's spooky tales. Maybe that could be a Halloween bonus, to be honest. Like, for real.
Compilation of my spooky stories. I mean, do you want to hear this really quickly?
Yeah, let's do
really
it. Yeah.
quickly
In
on
the middle
Queen
of the
Victoria.
Holmes and Watson episode, we'll do an Abby's creepy tales.
Yes. Okay, so I found out about this guy. I think his name was something really simple, like Bobby Jones. I need to double check.
Bobby
it was like Bobby
Jones.
Jones. Yeah, I'll double check, but it's something as simple as that. And
Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones, and he was the first person. He was the first instance of someone breaking in and stalking a member of royalty, and he did
Oh.
it to Queen Victoria. One night, Queen Victoria's in bed. There's a guy that's basically just manning one door in Buckingham Palace, and this is 1839, so she's only been on the throne for 3 years. It's dark because it's Victorian London. It means obviously no electricity. They use candlelight, but even candlelight can't really do much for how big and echoey these large halls and rooms are. This one guy's just sitting there, sitting at his station, watching the fire, probably eating a potato or something. I don't know, whittling around, maybe whittling wood. I wish I could whittle wood. We've talked about this. So he's there, sitting there.
It's a great stem.
And then he hears the big door creak open, and he sees this strange, shiny, oily little thing
What?
almost slinking across the room in the darkness, and all he can make out is like a pair of white eyes. And he says,
What?
who is there? Who is that? Who goes there? And he just sees a big white toothy smile. And then this weird little thing scurries back out and drops a bunch of shit on the way out. And he doesn't know what he just saw. So he alerts everyone. I just saw a strange blackened creature, like covered in oil,
Yeah.
like running around.
Greasy little man with a
Greasy,
big
greasy
smile.
little man
with a
with a-
great smile.
The big smile in the dark freaks me out. But he calls a bunch of guards, and they roam around the palace, and they find in a room, in a corner, a young 14-year-old boy covered in soot and oil. And
Oh,
he does it to disguise himself in the darkness of the palace because he's there to just rob them. And it turns out he might have been there for a few days.
It's just a little chimney sweep.
It's a chimney sweep.
Oh, please, copper, you can't catch me.
Oh, please.
So he was just doing a cheeky little grin, like Artful Dodger.
Yeah.
Like, oi, mate, you can't catch me.
But
why was he so wet? Because if he's covered in soot, he should be dusty. Why was he so slick?
Soot and oil. I don't know why he was slick either.
Why is he so
because
wet?
Karen Kilgariff tells the story so well in My Favorite Murder.
Maybe did they try and grab him and then he pulls
Literally,
away?
yes. Literally, one of them grabbed him and he managed to wrangle himself out of his grasp because he was so oily. Yeah. But they get him. And the kid goes to trial, and it is an absolute sensation because they're not only like
because
he's a greasy little chimney sweep. He's quite charming and sweet, but also they're like, wow, protection for the queen is terrible. Like, I can't believe this kid got into the palace. And he later reveals, he says, I didn't have to do anything difficult. I just walked around and tested which windows were locked and which weren't, and I snuck in that way. And so they were like, fuck, we've got to up our security for the queen. He goes to jail for all of like 2 months, and then he's released. And a year later, Victoria's just had one of her children. She's asleep and she's got like a nursemaid, I suppose, in the room with her, just like kind of keeping the kid occupied. And she hears a door creak open and she yells out, who goes there? And she sees, once again, a strange, slinky feet character with a big toothy smile and mischievous eyes, and it darts out of the room and she calls the guards and they find him in this empty room behind like a coat of arms, an armor, like a suit of armor. He's like hiding behind it, and they grab him, they arrest him again,
like
and
fucking Scooby-Doo
truly,
bit.
yeah, truly, and like they arrest him again. He goes to jail for another 2 months, and then he's released. And 2 weeks after he's released, some of the guards are in the palace at night, and they hear a strange noise coming from one of the galleries, and they just call out, "Jones, is that you?" And he goes, "Yes, it's me." And once again, he's arrested. And this time, they just don't know what to do with him. So they sent him off to sea. They think that he was made to go overseas for a few years because they couldn't really arrest him.
They can't catch him.
And they couldn't get rid of him. So they just sent him off in the Navy, and he went to Brazil, and then he ended up in Australia.
The English don't know how to do anything with people other than to put them on a boat somewhere else. That's why we're here.
He eventually came back, and then he emigrated to Australia, and he died down in Victoria in Gippsland.
Oh, wow.
A little town called Barnsdale near Sale. So yeah, that's the weird story of Victoria's stalker.
Okay, so when you started, I was like, where's this creepy tale going? Ooh, spooky ghost. And it turns out it was just a story of a greasy little cockney.
Yes.
Just a little nut job called Bobby Jones. It was like a Saturday morning cartoon. Can't catch me, copper. I'll wriggle out.
When I break into someone's, when I'm gonna completely cover myself in olive oil and slink around
soot.
and soot.
Yeah.
Layer of olive oil and soot. Did you like that story, Michelle?
It
was better than this film, right?
I actually look at the beginning. I was like, I don't know, but by the end of it, I'm like, I'm so glad you told that story.
Great,
I'm actually
fantastic.
really
It was
glad.
probably more enjoyable than the entirety of Holmes and Watson, I expect.
Absolutely. Look at how big my smile is.
And how miserable were you when you were watching the film? Yeah.
I got
Look.
I have so many notes. I want to ask a specific fucking question.
Yep.
Okay, because this movie bothers me because it insists the tension that we talked about before of it can't make up its mind whether he is really smart but in a silly, exaggerated way, or whether he is secretly dumb. And like that's kind of like the Watson POV of Holmes is doing something that's obviously stupid, and Watson can kind of tell, but is like, oh, but he's so smart. I'm so dumb, so I'll let him do this thing. Is like half of the gags, and the other half are like actually Sherlock did figure it out the whole time. Because that's the thing at the beginning. He figures it out.
Yeah.
Everyone's mad at him, and he's like, we don't need to worry about Moriarty anymore. But his pitch is that Moriarty's still out there.
Yeah.
So why is he?
Don't they find him in the US after the credits in that credit sequence?
They did, because he was right.
Yeah, because he was right.
Yeah, but even if he thought that, why would he then be like, this can't be Moriarty? He knows that Moriarty's still alive. That's his pitch.
Michelle, if you're going to just try and poke holes in the storyline, we're going to be here all day.
Also, they were like, oh, it's not Moriarty, it's this man who's working for Moriarty.
Jacob
and they were like,
Musgrave.
guess we have to let him go. And they're all mad.
And then
like,
he comes back later, having
does.
killed Steve Coogan's character.
Yeah.
And once again, they're like, you killed him. And he's like, oh, it's just me, Jacob Musgrave. You got me. And they're like, all right, that settles it.
That settles it. But like, they knew he was working for Moriarty. They can arrest him.
I don't know what to tell you,
They could just put him in jail, and then Rob Brydon's happy, but Will Ferrell is like, he's still out there. That makes way more sense as a plot.
I don't know what to tell you here.
And then everyone is like, oh, no, Moriarty, we got him. And he's like, no, it's Jacob Musgrave. The person in the jail is the chronic masturbator, which is the whole gag.
Yeah. A sorcier.
A sorcier.
That is the problem with the film. You can't tell if he's going to be correct or not because he is both stupid and a genius.
But it's not a dramatic tension. No. It's just...
it's a discrepancy.
Yes, because it means every joke can't really commit to being a joke. That's why Steve Coogan can tell stone cold jokes because his shtick is very clear. Him going, I didn't bake a cake, I baked a cake. That's funny. That's good, you know? It means the only jokes that are solid jokes are what if person in old times did modern thing, like the selfie camera.
Yeah.
I hate that gag so much.
They did not give a shit about timelines at all.
No,
they also had like a proper like, you know, a gramophone.
Yeah.
And this might have been the late 1800s, so there were gramophones, granted, but the song that they're playing is literally just the Righteous Brothers because they're doing a ghost joke.
Oh,
they're playing my love, and you're like, okay, that's an anachronism. And then literally the last bit is supposed to take place on the Titanic. The Titanic wasn't built till 1908. Victoria died 1901.
Yeah.
There's just no overlap
also,
there.
This is what I also mean about squandering the joke. When it was the Titanic that the whole plot was on, I thought the gag would be the classic Holmes thing, the classic mystery thing is the villain gets away. And I was like, oh, we're going to find out. Like they stop the plot, but they can't nab Kelly MacDonald. And then she's like, I've stowed away on the Titanic. Yeah. And we're like, oh, haha, she dies.
I mean, they do that to the love interests at the end.
Which is a worse joke.
Well, here's
they just
the thing.
explode Kelly MacDonald.
For the listeners, at the end of the film, the two love interests take off in the Titanic after they save it from the bombing of Moriarty's daughter, who is Mrs. Hudson, big reveal. And then they say like, oh, you'll be fine. You're on a very safe boat. We all know what happens on her maiden voyage. But also, like, they make it out as if it takes off from London. It didn't.
It didn't.
Took off from Southampton.
That's why they can't be the gag is like, because the other half of it is him going like, yes, always associate your friends and family, Watson with the Titanic.
Well, here's the thing. I don't care if they're like, we don't give a shit if it doesn't make sense because we're having a good time with it. I can respect that. If it's like, oh, you all knew
that's one
that.
thing.
If you all knew that the timelines don't match up, which they probably did, that's fine. But what does bug me is that they do clearly have a misunderstanding between Victorian London, which is Sherlock,
yes,
and Edwardian London, which is not Sherlock, which is 2 or 3 decades too late, and maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. And there's like so many Edwardian dresses in what is supposed to be a Victorian era. You see some good Victorian dresses, but there's literally a ball scene where there's a bunch of women in Edwardian dresses and like with almost like the empire waistline dropping down, and they clearly don't actually understand the differences between the ages.
Well, yeah, and Rebecca Hall is very clearly written as an American from like 1910, not from 1890.
Yeah, because she's talking like a fucking suffragette. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
but that's what I mean. I also don't mind so much like, oh, it's anachronistic, but whatever. But what I hate is they keep setting up a good joke and then doing like the worse, more hack version of it. I'm like, what? Don't even bother with the setup. Just do the hack joke, man.
And that's
Come
the thing.
on.
Look, I don't mind a silly, tasteless comedy. I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I like Borat, but. It wasn't funny, so that's just the problem.
It wasn't funny is probably the biggest problem with this movie.
Yeah.
I will say I got one more big gripe with this movie, which is I wanted two things that are related to each other. One is, does Will Ferrell contractually insist on singing in every one of his movies?
Probably not.
Because he sings a lot in his movies.
Doesn't he?
And he's not a bad singer. But they also get John C. Reilly to sing,
Yeah.
who is like in musicals a really, really talented singer. And I don't think John C. Reilly insists on singing in the way that Will Ferrell feels like he insists on singing.
I think he insists on singing.
I don't think John C. Reilly does. I feel like Will Ferrell does.
I don't think he would.
The way he drops it into every movie of his makes me feel like he thinks it's funny to sing in the way that Mike Myers thinks it's funny to sing a song.
Yeah. Yeah, we forgot to mention towards the end of the film when Sherlock Holmes realizes that Watson is probably innocent, he's done the wrong thing by sending him to jail and to the fucking gallows.
Yeah.
He busts out into a song.
He just starts singing.
Yeah.
And with the gag being it's funny for the characters to start singing towards the third act when you haven't established that it's a musical. A gag that I kind of like, especially in the form of dance number breaks out in an otherwise non-fantastical movie. Like the dance sequence in 500 Days of Summer is genuinely, I think, one of the more fun movie sequences of the 2000s. I think that's great. It's tedious and it feels like Will Ferrell annoying, and it contains maybe the worst cut I've ever seen in this whole fucking list, where they blatantly cut together two completely different versions of the same shot in the middle of a line. He's like, "Oh, have to be triumphant," and then like as he goes to say triumphant, they hard cut in the middle of it to another take. The lighting is slightly different, but it's the exact same angle. That
is what someone mentioned about this film,
God.
is that it is one of the worst editing jobs on like a major production.
It's a fucking hack job through it through. This is obviously, to me, like a rough cut.
Well, look, I can't find anything about a clause in his contracts for singing in a film, but there definitely has been a lot of them. And there's even an Entertainment Weekly article called Will Ferrell's best singing efforts on film listed.
And the way that it's described as an effort, I know singing efforts is a common descriptor, but I would never say John C. Reilly's best singing efforts.
Well, the fifth one is Baby It's Cold Outside from Elf. 4 is I'd Go the Whole Wide World from Stranger Than Fiction.
That's a great bit, and that's actually a good movie.
It's a good song too.
Yeah.
3 is Afternoon Delight in Anchorman.
Yes,
great moment.
Classic. That's a good version of this gag.
2 is Conte Partiro from, also called Time to Say Goodbye from Step Brothers. And then the last one is Dust in the Wind from Old School. Fuck, I forgot about Old School. I used to watch that too with like Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
Anyway, Michelle, do you want to hear some trivia?
I'd love it.
IMDb trivia. All right.
Froth a bit of Trevo.
Well, here you go then. According to Deadline, I don't know what Deadline is.
It's a what's it? News reporter. It's a journalism. It's not a newspaper. Film. What do you call a
zine?
A zine? No, not a zine. It's just a place like a review site. It's a website.
Why are you so angry?
Because there used to be newspapers, but now it's not really like a news website. It's a place. It's a website. They talk about movies and stuff.
It's okay.
I don't know what the word is, and I'm annoyed that I don't know what the word is. This movie got me cranky.
According to Deadline, after disastrous test screenings, Sony attempted to sell the film to Netflix, which declined.
That's actually maybe one of my favorite pieces of trivia you've ever read out.
Yeah. Also, what I love is that they didn't release it to be screened for critics.
Yes.
Which we get on this all the time. Not screened for critics is that's what this podcast should have been called.
It should have been called Not Screened for Critics. Look, there's a chance once we're done with the list, we just keep going and we just call it Not Screened for Critics.
During the opening days of its Christmas 2018 release, exhibitors reported an astonishing number of walkouts.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah. Many critics stated that the film was horribly unfunny and shockingly incompetent on a technical level, with sloppy editing and several shots out of focus.
Yes.
Hack job. Moriarty has a daughter in this film, which is odd considering that he is traditionally, in the lore of Sherlock, unmarried with no children. This is like the first thing ever that is tried to imply he might have a family.
He's a single man. Oh my God, he died single with his close companion.
Yes. Speaking on the Empire podcast, episode 346, about the quality of the film, Steve Coogan, who played Gustav Klinger, said, I think in 20 years' time, when the dust has settled and people are able to look at Holmes and Watson objectively, I think people will say it's still rubbish.
Yeah, God, you got to hand it to Coogan. Guy knows how to tell a stone cold joke.
Dude, I remember when I was in Brighton in England, and the Brighton wheel, like on the pier, the Ferris wheel that they have there, you can go in there and you can, I think it's just the Brighton Eye. You go in there and Steve Coogan narrates what you see out of it because he's from Brighton, and it's a very personal experience. He's like, hello, this is Steve Coogan. I know what you're thinking. Why am I narrating for the Brighton Eye? I used to grow up here. If you look over there, that's where it's very nice. It's very lovely.
That's always been his best skill, is he comes off as like a little arrogant and sort of detached, and then he like sneaks in enough vulnerability that you're kind of on his side.
Yeah.
The Alan, I've told you before, I love the Alan Partridge Alpha Papa movie that Iannucci wrote with him, because it's surprisingly tender about the necessity and value of like local radio.
And I just love Alan Partridge, the original series.
It's good.
Knowing me, knowing you.
Aha!
Aha! And here's the last piece of trivia. I didn't actually pick up on this when I was watching it. It confused me, but I probably wasn't paying enough attention. I'm just an idiot, because it is quite clear. Mrs. Hudson's lovers are Charlie Chaplin, Mark Twain, Harry Houdini, Sigmund Freud, and Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't see it? Yeah.
I just didn't.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
I mean, it's
why
not
does
a great
this guy
gag.
look like Mark Twain?
He even is like, you must be Mark Twain. I mean, look, it's hard to pay attention to these.
It is. Do you want to hear some reviews?
I would love to.
Reviews! All right. Okay. I guess I will.
All right.
Holmes and Watson was not screened in advance for critics who subsequently panned the film, as we mentioned. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 10%. The website's critical consensus reads, "The lowest and vilest alleys in London do not present a more dreadful record of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson than does Holmes and Watson."
Wow.
Yeah. Fred Schenk of The Hollywood Reporter called the film a Christmas turkey and wrote the overall shoddiness is typical of this feeble send-up that doesn't even manage to be as funny as the recent Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. versions.
This has got to be released at Christmas for that pun to make sense. Yeah, okay,
it was. And I actually have a fair few IMDb reviews today, all 10 out of 10s, because I thought so many of them were so stupid and so funny. This one was left by Josh O'Sullivan 99, 10 out of 10 review called Absolutely Fabulous. I really don't care that the hoi polloi American teenagers, capitalized, mostly will have had no idea whatsoever as to what is going on during this incredibly humorous indulgence in Victorian polysyllabic obfuscation and ancient retro wonderfully British humour. Well done, Mr. Cohen, and do not be discombobulated by the awful 3.5 rating on here, because I am giving it a 10 and watching it again immediately after my morning herbal smoking break. Lol. But true, smiley face. 10 out of 10.
At first I was like, this guy's got to be being sarcastic, and I'm like, I think he just watched it stoned.
Yeah. No idea whatsoever. Incredibly humorous indulgence in Victorian polysyllabic. I can't. It's too much. This is another 10 out of 10 review by Mila Giandinotto called Would Give 11 Stars If I Could.
Oh my God.
Warning, spoilers. Never in my life have I seen someone try to cut up Queen Vic, snort coke, and perform the ghost sex scene on a corpse all within an hour. While it might not have a plot or writing, it was nice to see Ray Fiennes in his place as an actor who got a maximum of 3 lines and existed only to capital S smirk. This film is only improved by the fact that capital P pretentious snobs who cream their own eclair hate it. That's such a good phrase. Yeah. In short, it was absolutely awful and I loved it. We'll see again tomorrow. A lot of people want to go see this film twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I was right. It made 20 million, but all those people watched it twice. The idea that this person's stance is that it's just pretentious people who masturbate.
Yeah.
Who watch it.
Cream their own eclair. This is another 10 out of 10 review left by Mandeep Bilku 6082930 called Interesting. Lol. Jokes. Well done, writers. They must have put a lot of thought in this too. 10 out of 10. Here's another left by Mika Hanaulen called Great Funny Movie. Warning, spoilers.
Oh.
This is by far the best movie I have ever seen in my 68 years of living.
Oh my God.
I'm 68. 10 out of 10. Here's another one left by Fonzie 61538 called Hysterical If You're Not a Millennial. Great movie.
What?
Very funny. But I can see how the humor would be lost on today's triggered soy babies.
What the fuck?
Soy babies!
Are we really getting into that point where it's become...
We
oh my
are.
God.
Here's another 10 out of 10 left by Rhino52292 called Amazing Return to Form. This classical duo of comedy genius has done it again. I never thought I'd feel about this movie the way I did, but it really got to me in a way that a movie hasn't in a long time. Well deserving of its awards, this movie is more than a comedy that you can't wait to tell your friends about, but it's also an unusual look into the often complicated and messy relationship between Holmes and Dr. Watson as they explore their potential feelings for each other that seem to go a lot deeper than they first realize at first. This progressive look at what is usually portrayed as a platonic friendship will leave you wide-eyed with wonder. Dude read into their relationship a lot more.
It's also like... pitching Holmes and Watson as homoerotic is like so common as to be trite. And this is the first time this guy ever has gotten a whiff of it.
Yeah.
Is in this movie where it's explicitly not what's going on.
Yeah. And here's the last one left by Martin von Martian called Pissed Myself Laughing, 10 out of 10. Watch the first 10 minutes so far, and it's hilarious how they take the piss out of everything. No idea if the dub parts are deliberate. I think they are, but they add to the hilarity for me. Two Americans shitting all over a holy saint of a character like Sherlock Holmes. Amazing. We'll update later. Part 2 in brackets. That is French for part 2.
Oh my God. Why?
10 out of 10.
Oh my God.
And I checked and he never came back to finish his reviews off.
Well, he watched the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he had to sit through the rest of it. But I mean, that's just Martin von Martian's half of a review. That's French for half of a review, by the way.
Sorry.
What did you think?
It's endlessly funny to me that the lower we get on this list, the more we run into...
Soy boys?
No, the more we run into defensive conservatives who love the movies.
And call people soy boys?
Some of the most idiotic movies we've seen, and they're like, fuck you hate this. But as a masturbating soy baby, I didn't like it.
Do you cream your own eclair?
I do cream my own eclair. I quite enjoying it. I used to cream my own eclair. These days, What's a great fingering? I've kind of betrayed.
You can still cream an eclair. I feel like an eclair is probably more similar to a pussy.
I guess, but no. But it is referring to putting the cream in the eclair.
Oh yeah,
creaming the eclair.
Creaming your own eclair. Yeah. True.
Yeah. Now I'm glazing my Danish.
I hate that.
This gets like a 3.3.
Yeah. Look, props for a good cast, but. Like minus thumbs down for like literally only making me laugh once, and it was because Lauren Lapkus had a sad cat drawing. 3.1.
3.1.
Yeah.
I actually, you know what? I'm gonna bump it to 3.4 for specifically Steve Coogan and the Billy Zane bit.
Nice.
I think those were funny.
Nice. Well, guys, we made it through.
We did it.
We're on social media. You can find us on Twitter under Rate Descend Pod. You can find us on TikTok under Rating Descending, or you can email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com. And I'm sorry, it's not Twitter. It is X now. My apologies.
Also, by this point, you should be able to find us on YouTube at Rating Descending as well. Or if you've already done that and you're like, what the heck do I do now? I still think these gals are so funny. Or even I just want regular updates on their lives. Well, you can find us on our own personal social media. You can find me on Instagram and X at Michelle.St.
And I'm on Instagram under Abigail J. Ward.
If you're even still after that yearning, begging for something to do, you could leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. It really makes a difference.
Well, Michelle, that was Holmes and Watson. What are we watching next week?
Next week we are watching Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
Woof, woof.
Woof, woof. Have you ever seen
let
this?
the dogs out. Woo, woo, woo,
If they don't play Beverly Hills by Weezer, I'm going to fucking lose it. I'm going to absolutely fucking lose it, all right? I want my Weez, and you're right, I want the Baja Boys, the Baja Men.
Okay,
I think it's the Baja Men.
Yeah.
You know, Rick. Oh, I'm so close to remembering the front man of the Baja Men. I wish I could. It's Rick Grimes. Carl, doing stuff, Lori. Thanks. I'm letting the dogs out.
Catch us next week there with Rick Grimes.